Hello, my friends. It is Friday, September 27th. This is the Daily Brief. The fighting on the battlefield has been hot, and you see it reflected on the numbers, and then you cross reference it with the news, and you can see what the pattern is. So, 1,370 Russians off the battlefield, 21 tanks. Remember, replacement value for tanks is about four per day, so that's 5 days worth of tanks that could be replaced. 48 armored fighting vehicles, 58 artillery systems, and another 58 vehicles and fuel tanks. So if we go and we just look at this, on each day of 2 days last week, the Ukrainian military reported more than 200 clashes between the two sides, the highest such numbers in many months, according to Deep State UA, a group of analysts that maps the battlefield. So, like, you're seeing it in the tabulations, but then you're also seeing it in the news, and so that's how we verify it. Okay, shot down 0 out of 1 Iskander ballistic missiles, 0 out of 2 cruise missiles, 24 out of 32 Shahed drones. The Ukrainians tend to have a better ability to shoot down the Shahed drones. They're a little bit slower moving. Cruise missiles, they can usually tag. But they have a really difficult time with ballistic missiles. They have had a very poor record of shooting those down. Russian troops attacked in the Odesa region with drones. 3 people died, 11 people were injured, including one child yesterday. Russians also hit Kryvyi Rih police department with a missile. As a result, there's a rescue operation underway. Jay in Kiev commented about this that Russians have just sent a $10 million ballistic missile to a police department in a central Ukrainian city. Many victims. This is life when the U.S. forbids Ukraine from striking Russia's launchers and airfields. That's absolutely right. Spot on. If they had the ability to target these, something would be a little different here. Okay, within Russia itself, Ukraine has attacked electrical infrastructure, which is on fire following Ukrainian drone strike. But this is an isolated incident. There's not a number of these kind of events happening across Russia. That's just the way that it went out today. Let's look at the battlefield itself. FSB forces are now fighting in Russia's Kursk Oblast. The deployment of FSB special forces in Kursk Oblast reveals coordinated issues with Russia's security apparatus. And if we look at this map, the Russians are coming from the north, from Koronevo, and from the west, and they're trying to push into Kursk. Now, the Ukrainians are still holding down here. The Ukrainians are making some little gains along the periphery of Kursk, of what they already held in Kursk. Now, the way this all went down was really interesting because when they first pushed in, they first invaded into Russia. The Russians didn't see it coming. They seemed to be taken by surprise, and there were only conscripts there, and the conscripts gave up pretty easily and surrendered. And the Russians had to amass a force of roughly 4 to 5 times the size of the force of the Ukrainians in Kursk in order to begin this counteroffensive. But they've been stymied by poor logistics. They've been stymied by poor direction from the top. They've been stymied by, well, this. Russian soldier admits in his blog that the Russian military is engaged in mass looting and robbery in Russia. That's right, they're looting within Russia in the Kursk region. Other military units had to be taken off the front to restore order in the Russian army. He wrote, some of our units, showing clear signs of decomposition, were noted for mass looting, robbery, and other nastiness in Koronevo. Yes, imagine. I'm attaching a link to an enemy resource. It's horrible, but it doesn't solve the problem because the stated facts correspond to shameful realities. At least he's admitting that. That's I give him high marks for saying this, what they're doing is shameful. Moreover, such degenerates were not only in Kornevo. Signals went from the very beginning, but rocked to respond, to put it mildly, not too promptly. Okay, so they were very slow on actually tamping down on this. But as a result, combat units had to be diverted. Plus, military police got to work for their intended purposes. I suppose that means as opposed to being fed into the wood chipper on the front line. Russian forces also recently advanced north of Kharkiv city and Chasiv Yar in the east and southeast of Pokrovsk. So the Russians are on the move. Now, the other day I said um, bad news, or this is a bad day for Ukraine, or terrible news, or something along those lines. And multiple people put in the comments, clickbait. You don't clickbait about terrible news. You clickbait, I guess, about like Russia's gonna fall tomorrow, or the economy's going to collapse next week, or something along those lines. You clickbait on overly optimistic news, but you have to present the full picture. Otherwise, you're just a propagandist. Okay. Anyway, heavy combat for Volodar continues. I don't understand the rationale for holding on to the ruins until the last, when resupply evacuation routes are getting under enemy fire control. Since the commander in chief recently replaced the brigade commander, this isn't a local decision. So why are they holding Volodar when it looks like they can't really hold it? They're going to lose. It's going to fall. My understanding is the longer they can hold out in something like Volodar, the better it is for Pokrovsk, for General Winter to come to the aid of Pokrovsk. So the more they can stymie them there, the better it is. I don't know that I'm right. I'm not a military expert, and if you know something more than I do, please put that in the comments below. British military intelligence update. Russia's autumn conscription cycle starts on 1 October 2024. So they have to replace something something north of 500,000 men to backfill all the losses from this past year, and the extra 180,000 that they are supposed to add to the Russian army. So that's a tall task. So that'll start on October 1st, and all Russian men are required to have 1 year of military service. But conscripts haven't been in the front line in Ukraine, but they have been sent to Kursk. So you'll start seeing that start to trickle in, or starting in about a week. Okay, in other news, Donald Trump said that he would meet with Zelenskyy. He said initially he would, then he said he wouldn't, then he said he would again, and they're supposed to meet in Trump Tower. I'll keep my eye on that and keep you posted. Russian propagandist Solyov, quote, we should reach natural barriers, for example, to the Atlantic Ocean, where there is no need to gain enemies. Well, if you go to the Atlantic Ocean, you will already have made all of Europe your enemy. It solves the problem immediately. We're not going to fight with the fish. But if you try that, you might sleep with the fish. Okay. Just remember, Jay in Kiev says, just remember that in 2014, while Putin was pouring convoys of Russian troops, tanks, and missile systems into Ukraine, but saying they must be local volunteers that bought gear at local shops, international media actually went with it. So, the one upside of what's going on right now is that we're finding out what's happening in Ukraine in real time and reporting, and you're getting to see what's actually happening. And we're not just turning a blind eye. Finally, I'll end with this. This is what we're fighting for. So, what's most universal is most personal. We all understand this. These guys are defending their homes, their wives, their family, their children. And yeah, I mean, that is what they're fighting for. Okay, we'll leave you with that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.